Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and create a video going over the identification of decimals because not everyone has turned it in and not everyone is getting full credit. So I thought I would do my best to make it easier for you. So before we start, I want to talk about place value. So hopefully by now you're all familiar with the decimal point, this point right here. And anything to the left of this point represents a whole number. Anything to the right of a decimal point represents a part of a whole number or a fraction of the whole number. So when we're creating our decimals, it's important to have a good, firm understanding of place values on the right side of our decimal point. So for now, the first piece we're working with is just that first spot right after the decimal point. This place value is known as tenths with the TH at the end. So in this spot, any number that falls into this location is the amount of tenths that you have. So when we're looking at those whole decimal squares broken down into 10 equal sized pieces, those pieces represent tenths. So when you're creating your decimal, as long as your shape looks like this, or it looks like this, or some whole shape that's been divided 10 times equally, you're working with tenths. So I've shown you how to do the fraction setup. All you're doing is counting your shaded parts. So I have 1, 2, 3 shaded parts out of 10 equal sized pieces. To set that up in decimal form, we're starting with our 0 point because we don't have any whole numbers. And how many tenths do we have? How many shaded pieces do we have? That's what goes right there. So I have 1, 2, 3 shaded pieces. So when we're working with tenths, your numerator over here and your tenths value over here should be the same number. Looking at my other shape, I have 6 shaded pieces out of 10 total pieces. So when I want to set up my decimal, I'm starting with my 0 point because again, I have no whole numbers here. And the number that goes in that first blank after the decimal point is 6 because I have 6 1/10 pieces. Okay? So hopefully that part isn't too bad. When I was checking our work, I noticed we had some people struggling with this. So I want to make sure that we talk about it. So again, your decimal point is the same. This over here still represents whole numbers, which we are not working with for now. We have this blank, we have this blank, and truly those blanks go on and on and on forever. But we're only focusing on the tenths, as we just finished, and the hundredths. So your hundredths is when you have that whole square that's been divided into 100 equal sized pieces. So this visually looks more like a checkerboard than this one. So when you see something that looks like a checkerboard like this, you can guarantee that we're working with those hundredths. And I'm going to kind of highlight both of those places because they both can come in handy for this one. So creating those fractional pieces first. I know I have 100 equal size pieces. And my numerator is still going to be shaded pieces. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shaded pieces. So over here on my fraction, I'm writing my 8. Now the setup gets a little bit more complicated when we want to transition that to decimal. So we still have zero whole numbers. Remember that first blank after the decimal point is our tenths. Do we have any tenths in this particular example? So remember, a tenth is when we have an entire strip shaded. An entire strip. Well, no, this strip, those two are not shaded. So we have 0 tenths. How many hundredths do we have? So how many individual shaded parts do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so no whole numbers, no tenths, but I have 8 hundredth pieces shaded. So that's where it can get tricky. Let's try another example. I'm shading. All right, so I can set up my fraction. I still am working with my shaded pieces over my total pieces. I know I have 100 total pieces. How many shaded pieces do I have? Well, a whole strip is 10. So I have 10 plus 10, which is 20, and 3 extra. You can always just individually count those to get to 23 if you don't like just counting your whole strips as 10. Completely up to you. Now we can set up our decimal. So I have 0 whole pieces. How many tenths do I have? So how many full columns do I have? Well, there's a full column, 1, and there's another full column, 2. And then do I have any extra pieces? Absolutely. So that is how it works. So notice that these two numbers are still the same. It's just our setup is different. So when we're working with these hundredth pieces, we need a tenth place and we need a hundredths place. Even if that tenth place is 0, like it was over here, that 0 is so important because if we leave off that 0, so if we do 0.8 instead of 0.08, well, this is like 80 cents, and this is like 8 cents. So when we're thinking of what that looks like in money form, that's quite different. So this 0 is very significant to the value of this decimal. So when you're working through that assignment, I recommend you work through your tenths first. Get all of those done because all of those are structured the same way. Once you finish your tenths, you can then do your hundredths, remembering that you need 2 numbers after that decimal point, always. Okay? You need to rewatch this video, skip ahead, move around, do whatever you need to do to be successful. But I hope this was helpful for you.